G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap. This week, of course, we've got to wrap up the trade week trade 10 days that just occurred, which was 9.5 days of nothing and half a day of, well, almost nothing as if you're a Crows fan. So without any further ado, let's crack straight in, shall we? I had myself on mute all that time, big man. That's a good start.
The intro?
Yeah, the whole thing. That's all right.
I could hear you, mate.
Yeah, you could hear me, but they couldn't. But that's all right.
Oh, great.
I didn't say anything anyway. I just said trade week was 9.5 days of nothing and half a day of nothing if you're a Crows fan. So, yeah, which pretty much sums it up. So thanks everyone for joining us and we'll see you next week. No. Sincerely thanks to those who've joined us on YouTube and also on Discord, of course. Cricket on, so a lot of people probably watching the cricket, plus I didn't really give anyone any notice. I just posted it on Twitter about 10 minutes ago, so people probably weren't even aware that we were coming on tonight, mate. But that's all right. How you been?
Good, mate. Well, yeah, not too bad. It was a strange trade period. We went from looking like we're going to do a lot to looking like we're not going to do much at all. And then I did call us getting Finbar Maley, as you remember last time. I remember I said we were going to get him, as no one else picked up on. No, that completely came out of the blue. That was bizarre. And then we had the finish to the the last few hours, and we thought it actually wasn't going to get done, and that's what happened. It didn't get done, and we weren't the only team that didn't get deals done either. So I still maintain, Fiend, that if you put all the list managers in a room for 2 or 3 days, they'd get the same amount of deals done. There's just a lot of posturing and procrastinating, but at least, but it was a little different this time. I think it showed the power of of having contracts, and clubs were more willing to hold their players.
I've got a bit to say about that.
In Brisbane's case, they're still willing to hold their players even if they're out of contracts, which is the weird one that we copped. So,
yeah. All right. So for those who are wondering where the rest of the cohort is, Brownie's in Vietnam at the moment, living it up with a mutual friend of ours who's just about to retire and come back to Australia. So Brownie thought he'd just squeeze another 10 days in Vietnam with no accommodation costs because he's a freeloader. So he won't be listening. He'll be drinking mojito. Do you know, big man, last time I was in Vietnam visiting our mate, he took us to this place that served mojitos, and my GPS after 4 mojitos just completely disappeared, and walking home was like watching me reenact a pinball in a pinball machine.
I'll tell you what,
look at a straight line.
That is the danger of Vietnam, is the cheap mojitos. They're so good. It's so cheap, and very dangerous.
Very dangerous indeed.
I like how he said. I like how he says a freeloader, even though accommodation over there is like $5 a night.
Yeah, I know, but he's still freeloading it. He's living in a bloody 4-bedroom serviced apartment in a gated community. The bugger. Anyway, and Macca has let us know that his Sunday afternoon guests have not left his home, and therefore he won't be able to attend this evening. So. Well, I got to have words because there's contractual obligations that he's not meeting, so we might have to go to the podcast association on that one. But the important people are here, mate, and I've got a little bit of a format planned, so why don't we head straight into it? Of course, if you are on Discord and you want to have something to say, then stick your hand up and we will get you on. Mate, an hour. Are you ready?
Oh, sure. I have doubts, mate. I have doubts, but we'll see what happens.
Doubts? All
I
right.
think we're pushing one. I think 1.5 sounds about right. I think 1 hour sounds a bit tight.
Oh,
We'll see how we go.
1.5. What are we going to talk
Not two
about?
and a half.
That's
I mean,
that's like bloody trade. That's like trade week. Like we're going to put an hour and a half into 10 minutes worth of valuable conversation.
well, I pushed it out to 2.5 last time. I can promise you that won't happen again. I've learnt my lesson.
Yeah, I can promise you too. All right, let's start off with the retirees. There were a couple of retirees from the Crows at the end of the season. Of course, Brodie Smith played 273 games, averaged 19 disposals, 4 rebound 50s, 357 metres game, which must be up there as almost a record, I reckon, and 3.4 intercepts per match. Smithers, I think, made the right call. A lot of us didn't think he'd get through this season, but I would say, whilst I wasn't a fan of his selection when he was selected, more or less did what he needed to do and was a solid end to a pretty good career, big man.
I would say he had a better year this year than he did last year. I think that most would agree with that. Even though I might have played his games, I'm not sure, but he just looked more AFL ready this year for whatever reason. Maybe he knew that he was near the end and that gave him some extra motivation. I'm not sure. But, I thought he finished off his career pretty well in the end. And what a career he's had. He's actually been one of my favourites, particularly of the modern era. You know, we took him at pick 14 back at that day. That was in hindsight, that was an absolute steal in a draft that wasn't particularly strong, but it was quite deep. But he's just gone from strength to strength. I think with those times there, we're hoping he was going to become a midfielder for us, but he never really quite was able to transition his game to the midfield. But as a half-back, he's been one of the better ones over the last 15 years. And, when at his best with his speed, that kick, he's kicking darts and he's kicking goals at 55 on the run. For a skinny guy, who never really built up his body too much, pretty competitive and pretty hard to play against as well. He didn't have the perfect career, and obviously that knee was so devastating in the qualifying final years ago. He's an All-Australian, probably unlucky not to win a BNF, and I'm really proud of what he was able to do. I think he had a fantastic career, and it's it always sucks to see some of your favourite players retire, but that's just how footy goes. And I'm sure we'll see this next year with Tex. And it's just what happens. But no, he should be very proud. He's a fantastic player.
Yeah, I was very pleased that he was able to finish off his career honourably. That he, I was concerned that he'd gone on too long. But no, and I think he was a victim of a very strong midfield when he started his career, and I think once you start playing off halfback for a few years, and it becomes harder then to transition to the midfield, I reckon. And he turned into a pretty good straight line player. Those long raking goals, from 55 off the handoff there were certainly a highlight, and we wish him all the best in the future, whether he goes back and plays some SANFL or whether he gets into coaching or whether he rides off into the sunset. Matty Crouch, of course, also retired, unfortunately. Ongoing injury concerns, particularly around his hip. Only 164 games for Matty Crouch. It's such a shame. The injuries cruelled his career. Averaged 28 disposals over those 164 games, 5 clearances, 11 contested possessions, and 5.5 score involvements per match over 164 games. I think we'd all agree that players like Matty Crouch have probably seen the game pass them by. I think, the highlight of his career was probably 2017, irrespective of the grand final. But in terms of a body of work, 2017, I think, was his zenith. But the game did change, and he did try to adapt, but at the end of the day, I don't think he was physically capable.
It's funny you bring up the grand final because I think he was probably our best player that day too. That 2017 grand final, that 2017 season, he was only 22 at the time.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, he was a BNF winner in a minor premiership team. He was an All-Australian, and it felt like, he was just going to keep going on to better and better things. And it seemed like he was a lock-in, 250 plus game player. And fortunately, I think it was around 20, might have been 21 or 22. He really started to have issues with his groins, and then now he's had hip issues as well. And look, it's not that surprising in some ways, because even from the start, his running gait, it always looked like someone that's going to struggle with his hips at some point.
Yeah.
But look, in terms of as him as a player, there's definitely been a shift towards away from those sorts of types. We even see Tom Mitchell's now being delisted by Collingwood, and he's a very similar player, and there's others as well. But gee, what a ball magnet! Absolute ball magnet. As good as you'll probably see, to be honest. And he, I know at times, I'm sure you've been critical, I've been critical of him probably stat chasing a little bit, getting too many handball receives when he should be the one giving the handballs out. But I think he found a better balance to his game, particularly in 2023. And I think, 2024, sorry. And I think that was his best year, probably apart from his earlier years, where he was able to find a better blend and win clearances more and become that first possession player, which suited him because we know he's not quick. And he's a nice short kick, but he's not damaging, particularly over anything over 30 metres. Probably defensively.
Defensively. Sorry, I have a feeling we actually changed his role somewhat towards the back end of his career. He went from being a pure inside mid to almost being inside out, and he quite often was first off the ranks, particularly when Brad came back at that last season. It seemed that Brad was the inside ball, dishing it out to Matt more than the other way around. Whether that was an attempt to prolong his career and just stop him getting so battered and bruised, I'm not sure. But as I say, he was limited defensively. He had the one feature of his game early in his career was his ability to hit up 20 to 30 metre passes, but that sort of fell away from his game as he had troubles with injury. He did come back promisingly in 24 and looked like he was back to that hitting up pass kind of game, but it didn't last, and unfortunately he wasn't able to overcome things. So congratulations to Matt on his career, and it's such like, what is he, 29? It's too young, but
30, yeah. I think there could be an argument made that he ended up having the better career of the two brothers. Unfortunately, both succumbed to injury far too early than they should have. But I think Brad was probably was obviously more blessed athletically, although that was curtailed a bit by his injuries. But Matt, geez, initially I think some people thought we picked him up just to help keep Brad, but no, Matt was a great player in his own right, and I know he has his critics, but I'm an unashamed fan, and hopefully it's weird for him. Where does he go now? Because he's so young still, I'd imagine his career's probably over because of those injuries, but yeah, I'd be interested to see what he does with his football in general after this, because
he's a bit of a footy nerd, so I wouldn't mind betting we see him in coaching or development.
So if he played in any sort of district or country league or something, he'd rack 50 touches a game. That's what he does.
Yeah, that's right. He just gets the ball. So the other two retirees, we also had some delistings. Of course, Carl Gallagher leaves us without having played any AFL games, but obviously played some SANFL. Didn't quite crack it enough, probably didn't adapt to the game well enough, gave it a good crack, and we wish him all the best as he heads back to Ireland. Kieran Strawn.
Yeah. Actually, Finn, I was just going to touch on Gallagher. I think one little interesting fallout with this will be just how Mark Keane goes, because he's probably one of the best things for keeping Mark Keane at the club. They live together. Well, they live together, and Keane's talks about how there's not much of an Irish presence in Adelaide compared to Melbourne, and I'm sure having Carl at the club helped with homesickness and all that sort of thing. So, I mean, it sounds stupid. Hopefully, losing Carl doesn't hurt that too. But I don't mind the Irish experiment. He definitely improved in his second year, but there was just too many limitations, and I just don't think it was worth it going forward.
No. Look, I think it's always worth a shot. Those Gaelic football boys are amazingly athletic, and they're hard units, and they run fast, and they've got lots of attributes, but it's a difficult game to learn at the best of times. Some take to it better than others. So Cole gave it his best shot, and we thank him for that. Kieran Strawn, a real servant for the club after being brought in sort of mid to late career. Played a few AFL games, but couldn't really cement his spot. Was just there to keep O'Brien honest, really, but had a really, really good SANFL career, both as a forward and also as a ruckman. And it's probably the right time, I think, to move on from Kieran, but he's had a very, very good career.
I have a mate who played with Kieran in his earlier days, before he played VFL and such. And he said not to expect too much, but as much as he was a great bloke, he was a bit limited in terms of his ability. But I reckon he just got better and better at SANFL level. And once he was able to take the number one ruck spot, once Paul Hunter moved on, he really took it into his own. And like, he deserved those AFL games he got. Obviously, never really built up his body enough to compete against the big boys in the senior league. But as an SANFL ruckman, he's been one of the best over the last 5 years, and that's a tip to his a nod of the hat to anyone to be able to do that. It was a fantastic effort. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. I think the club's pretty keen to keep him in some sort of coaching role. It'll be interesting to see if he has a playing role as well, and how that works out. But it's we have to move on. His age, 30 years old, but in terms of his state league career, he's been very, very good.
Yeah. Lockie Murphy, all jokes about Lockie aside, probably one of the hardest tries we've had at the club. Has always put in 110%, even though that's mathematically impossible. And he's never shirked an issue whenever he's been asked to put on the Guernsey. So a lot of people will be, I guess, nothing personal against Lockie, but happy to see Lockie delisted. But no one can doubt his application and his attitude and his worth around the club, etc., etc. So, I reckon Lockie can be proud that he got the best out of himself. Came from very humble beginnings. Probably was just a little bit too short to play his preferred suitable position in the midfield, and therefore never was quite able to find a home, was he?
No, look, you're right, and you said it well, Fiend. I mean, we can be harsh, can't we, as supporters and whatnot? We can say some pretty nasty things. I know these guys are getting paid a lot of money, and Murph's eked out like a better career than a lot of players would have, who have been more talented. And look, there was a time, especially in his early days, where we were quite excited about Murph. He had a bit of speed. He had, really come on well in the SANFL program, and we needed a small forward at the time, so he sort of got pigeonholed as a small forward, even though that was his probably least natural position. We sort of gave him the old Petrenko treatment. Unfortunately, you're right. We never really considered him in his natural position as a midfielder.
No.
And I don't think he would have probably made it as a midfielder either. I just don't think he had quite enough class with his decision making and whatnot. But look,
he wasn't bad around stoppage. He wasn't bad at stoppage.
He knows where to go. He's pretty clean, and he knows how to his movement around stoppage is pretty high level. It's just probably the rest that comes off that. And unfortunately, we play as a forward when he doesn't have much goal sense. So I think we didn't make the most of what he had, but at the same time, he still played over 100 games, so he had a fair crack at it, and it's time to move on. But no, you're right. Murph's been, from all reports, a fantastic guy around the club, and whatever he does next, I hope it goes well for him. If he's to play state league footy or whatnot, he'll play really well, because that's he dominates that level.
Oh yeah, he is like one of those blokes that's right on the cusp too good or top level SANFL, not quite there for AFL for whatever reason. Future Brownlow medalist Harry Schomburg was not necessarily surprising, but it's been a disappointing journey for Harry, in my opinion. There's some rumoured attitude problems early, and then he knuckled down and got that Achilles, which is always hard to come back from. Didn't get much of an opportunity after that. A game late in the season this year that visibly didn't please the coach, and he was already on the rookie list, so he got let go. I reckon there's probably a 50-50 chance that Harry might get picked up somewhere. I wouldn't mind betting someone like West Coast maybe might pick him up as a speculative bet.
That's the talk, isn't it? That he's going to be a train on there in the summer and maybe get picked up as an SSP.
Yeah.
And I hope he does, because
I think. Yeah.
Oh, I think Crow supporters in general would be rapt if he did, because I think he's shown a real willingness to knuckle down the last couple of years. It just hasn't happened for him, and there's a player there. I think originally in his first couple of years, I was really excited, and I'm sure you were too, fan. It seemed like we might have found one, even though he was a pick 24, which is not a low pick, but it just seemed like he almost looked like someone you could almost bank on to become a really good AFL player. And
that first season that he played a few games, it just looked to me as if we had a genuine inside-outside midfielder. He
had that overlap run, and he was able to spin around and just do some classy things. He's just found it hard to keep building his game, and unfortunately, he's not alone in this regard with our midfielders coming through. They seem to show some good signs early and then just not go on with it. He became quite fumbly. He struggled to get heaps of pill at the level, and I think his kicking's always been an issue. He doesn't quite have that touch in it. I don't think Carey knows where his kick's going to go. If it's going to fall get full short or go over the top. It's always a bit of hit and miss, and that's probably why the coach has reacted that way in that one game. So, look, I think there's enough there to be a competent AFL player still, and I hope he does make it. Obviously, it's not with us, but if he does make it at West Coast, I'd be rapt for him.
Now, Ben Tree in the YouTube chat says Fiend thought he'd win the Brownlow, keeping quiet about that. Did you not hear me say future Brownlow medalist, mate? It was the very thing that I opened up with. So we can't all get him right, but maybe you'd like to come on and make a few predictions as well. Look, I hope that he gets a second crack. I don't know physically whether he's up to it now, whether he's lost a yard with that Achilles or whatever. Another one that's pretty good at SANFL level. West Coast would be a team that would have some opportunity for him. So we'll see how that goes on. And more recently, with the following trade week, we delisted Chris Burgess, which after Finbar coming on, who we'll talk about in a moment, Chris was always under the pump there. So again, a bloke who absolutely tears it up at SANFL level, and for whatever reason, it doesn't translate to AFL.
State League king, this guy. He dominated up in when he was playing for the VFL Gold Coast team, and then he comes back.
That's why we picked him up.
Kicked 50 plus this year, and he's pretty reasonable last year too. So, knows how to take marks and kick goals, but unfortunately, his recovery is really poor, and I think that was the real problem we found out at the level. If he didn't take the mark, there wasn't much to come afterwards.
There wasn't much else.
So that really separates the levels, and it just shows you how harsh this gig is. The step up is immense at times, and I'm curious, fan. Like if we originally, I thought Burgess we're going to get rid of Burgess if Tex signed, which he did, but I don't know. I never expected us to actually pick up Finbar Maley in the trade period, so it seems like we're waiting on that, and we're looking for a ruck forward to replace Burgess before we actually delisted him. So I'd be curious to see if we didn't actually pick up Maley, whether we would have kept Burgess. Which I think would have been a mistake if we did.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't think Toby Murray's come on quite as they expected.
Oh,
and
I,
he's the obvious one.
yeah, I still think with Toby, like he's only 22 and 21, 22, and he really hurt himself with that injury, that ankle injury, halfway
Well,
through
and I
the
think
year or
that's why
earlier
they
in the
kept
year.
Chris on. I think that's why they would have kept Chris
Um,
on, just to see how Toby came
yeah,
up through
I think
pre-season.
at Burjo's age, I know people talk about depth and having to have players ready to go, but I don't think there was a scenario where we wanted to play him anymore in the senior league. Once we saw that West Coast game, I think we all agreed that his time was done. So I think we've made the right choice there. It's harsh on Chris because he's had such a good year in the SANFL, and I don't know if he stays with us or he goes to Westies. Maybe I'm sure Westies would love to have him back,
Oh
and
yeah,
he'd be great for
100%.
them. But if he plays for us, that'd be pretty good too. Because geez, he still knows how to take a mark and kick a bag of goals. So.
Yep, 100%. And Wesley's could do was one of those. Trees Man in YouTube has kindly donated a cup of coffee. I think I might have shamed him into that, big man.
He was the one that had a go at you, was he?
Yeah, he's one that had a crack, but
The Brownlow thing?
he's
That's right.
backed it
He's right
up.
up.
He's paid his $5 fine and
Yeah, man
said
of his
well
word.
done on a big year. So we appreciate Trees Man because he's been a long time listener for us, like many others. All right, so let's move on to Traded In. But before that, I did forget someone, so we'll talk about the other guy quickly. And I've forgotten his bloody first name now. Darryl Cotton. What's his first name?
Indy.
Indy, that's it. Indy Cotton.
Indy Cup.
As a Cat B.
Yeah.
As a Cat B, ex-basketballer. In case you weren't aware, there are a few ex-basketballers in the AFL. I'm not sure whether people are aware that Scott Penderbury was an ex-basketballer, big man. Do you reckon there's anyone in Australia that wasn't aware of that?
That's brand new information.
Yeah, I think Brian Taylor's actually gone door to door with that information.
Next, you can tell me Mike played rugby, mate.
Yeah, I know. God, imagine how much fun he's going to have with Finbar's old man having played for the 36ers. Brian Taylor's going to go to town on that one, and Dwayne Russell
got to get a game first.
To town on that one.
Oh yeah, Dwayne.
Well, and interesting reports about Indy. A likely type. Heavily obviously in the basketball program up until recently, but I don't know. It's speculative, I guess. But I mean, whether you speculated on an Irish guy or an ex-basketballer or a Yank like Collingwood did with Mason Cox, sometimes it works out. Or we had a good career out of Hugh Greenwood.
Yep.
In that space, so well worth a shot in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I love these sort of picks, fan. They cost you nothing. He had a number of clubs going after him, so I think there's a general consensus that he's something pretty not want to say special, but there's something there, and he's played a fair bit of football growing up, and we know his dad has ties to us and Port as well, but
yep,
yeah, there's a football background there.
He had a couple
his family
of number one hits, didn't he?
But yeah, look, I love this, and the people, some people who know Indy or know his family, like they think we've got a really good one here, and great athlete, great size. Obviously, don't expect too much next year, maybe, but at his age, he's only 18, so he's essentially a draftee, and we picked up Hugh. I think he would have been about 23.
Gone through college.
He's got 5. Yeah, he's got 5 years, so that there's less time between him playing football as well, and I think he'll be a sneaky one that obviously he doesn't get mentioned by the media and stuff because he hasn't done anything. But I think when people talk about the players coming in, I wouldn't forget about this guy. I think he's a sneaky good pick for us, which is great because we don't have many good picks this year because of how we finished. So the more the better.
Yeah. Just on Nathan on YouTube chat has also donated a coffee. Thanks, mate. Much appreciated. He says, Great work this year, lads. Been a great listen and appreciate the work. Been great for me to get my Crows fix over here in Sydney. And I've got to say, I love the fact that we have so many listeners from interstate and overseas. And I can dare say, with the precious little Crows coverage we get in Adelaide, I can only imagine what it's like interstate.
Well, Crows fans are everywhere, Fiend. Have you ever, I swear every interstate game I see, that even just between neutral teams, there's always some bloke in the crowd with a Crows jumper on.
Mate, it's not just the footy. You go at West Indies, the recent Australia tour of the West Indies, there was about 10 Crows fans over there.
Yeah, cricket, everything. So, no, they're everywhere, the Crows fans. They're very loyal and, thanks, mate, because that's very kind words because it's great to have everyone from everywhere.
100%. And it's the reason why we set this up in the first place, to fill that gap. Now, Finbar, an interesting selection. One of the best Mo's going around, one of the best first names going around. So he's got two things going for him straight up. He's also a fantastic contested mark. But the knock on him is that he doesn't know where to put himself and can't kick. So, yeah.
Now, look, this is a weird one. I don't think anyone expected this. Like it's funny how like every player gets thrown up and in trade period by the media, and everyone gets linked to everyone, but no one saw this one until it basically became official. It was like 20 minutes between it being talked about, and then it just happened. So I was blindsided. I'm sure we all were. It makes sense. We went for another ruck forward. I don't think that's bad, but I mean, this is a guy that North Melbourne didn't want to play, and they got a complete lack of key forwards. And he was on the delist pile anyway. I think they probably would have retained him, but only probably on a 1-year contract, which is the same we gave him, except we can guarantee him a contract. So, look, I don't love these sort of picks, Finn. I've got to be honest. They feel like they're not almost entirely misses, but definitely more miss than hit. At the same time, there's no denying his marking power. He's probably now the second best marking third best behind Filthy and Dawson. But there's more to footy than just marking, as you see with Burjo. So, look, the only thing that sort of stops me from thinking this was a wasted trade is that he's only 22 and doesn't have a huge background in football. So, we're pretty good developing tools. So maybe we can get something there. The fact that he's only on a 1-year contract suggests to me that we probably don't have a heap of confidence. Look, it's not going to cost too much. As I said, I don't love these sort of picks because they're usually a waste, but at the same time, he is at least structurally okay depth. And he actually showed some okay signs this year in both the VFL and obviously playing senior footy. It's just there's a lot of rough edges here, Finn.
What it indicates to me is that we've really gone all in on this tall forward structure. Bimbar, and we've still got Tex, we've got Fogg, we've got Riley Thilthorpe, we've got Tyler Welsh hanging around the twos, Indy Cotton coming in. There's a fair wealth of tall players. Toby Murray is another.
Yep.
So they really are all in on this tall forward structure. I don't know. Surprises me a little because I think the reason why I think our tall forward structure works the way that it does is because two of our tall forwards are actually lead ups, and
they're more medium forwards, if anything, I'd say in some ways. Correct. Particularly Tex. Tex is Tex doesn't really play tall at all, and his best stuff is with the footy in the hand, not his marking. And Filthy's the only genuine key position player out of those three. Yeah. So
anyway,
I will say, I've had a bit of a dig at Port fans for picking up Jacob Ware and Will Brodie and stuff. So I can't say, Finbar Maley's a great pick for the Crows, because it's sort of in the same realm of player that you expect to probably get delisted in a year or two. But at least this one structurally helps, with Burgess out and Tex out next year, and look, it's potential Welsh will get delisted and such. You do need to keep topping up players because we did have to play Burgess this year, and and that was resting Tex. Imagine if Tex was injured and Phil Thorpe was injured, then maybe someone like a Maley becomes someone that we need to play. So, it's not the worst.
I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. I feel like you play to your squad, and if Tex was out or when Tex retires, I'm far more in favour of looking at your squad and playing to your strengths. And at the moment, I don't know whether our three tall forward structure works with any other combination, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it's more what happens if Filthy goes down. So, like, we had a scenario this year where Tex was being rested and Toby Murray was injured, or at least he was just coming back from injury. So we played Burgess. But I think going forward, if Filthy was to get injured and such, then and Ibis was injured, then or maybe Maley's next in line in front of Ibis. Who knows? But I just think it was probably in an area where we probably do need to keep refreshing players. And I think the good thing is that he's 8 years younger than Burjo. It's not as good as Burgess at state league level, but there might be more room to grow there. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, as Alex says on the YouTube chat, there is 5 on the bench next year, so that's a consideration.
Yeah.
The other consideration, of course, is that...
Sorry, I know that I've done this a couple of times, but just to interrupt there, but sorry. But what do you just quickly on that whole, like, because I know Reed mentioned it as well, and I'm not convinced yet that this whole 5-man bench is going to lead to a second ruck. Do you agree with that? Like, do you think that's a fait accompli?
I don't think so.
No, everyone seems to be saying, "Oh, it's going to be a second ruck," and I'm like, I reckon teams are going to use it for an extra runner or someone. Like, I'm just
absolutely 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I think we need.
I think we have a situation. I mean, they haven't changed the rotations at all, so it's still 70 odd rotations or whatever. But I think it's just another opportunity to keep running players fresh. And I don't like 5 on the bench. I would much rather us go back to 3 on the bench, make it more of a war of attrition, because I think the game needs some breaks put on it at times, and to make it a little bit more chaotic and a test of fitness. At the moment, I don't think it really is a test of fitness anymore. 5 on the bench.
A different type. Now, it's more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and you just have these rolling zones now, and I'm with you though. I don't think it'll lead to a rush. What's that? They don't even train long distance running anymore. Like, clubs won't have their players do anything more than like 2 or 3 Ks at a time. If you see them training around, they run around ovals. They'll do like a 400 meter around an oval, then recover and then do it again, like quick short stuff. Yeah. I think the hardest working players on the field these days are the bloody half-forward flankers that play high, up and back and up and back. Blows like Ben Keys and
wingmen as well.
Neil Bullen, yeah. Well, even the wingmen tend to play behind the ball half the time, especially in our team. Anyway, who's our second ruck?
It's Lockie McAndrew.
So, I don't have a lot of faith in Lockie, all due respect. I think he will be similar to Kieran in that his SANFL form, as patchy as it is, won't translate to AFL. I don't think he'll put any pressure on O'Brien, and that was one of the queries, or one of the reasons why Kieran Strawn at least had some value, because he could ruck genuinely. He just couldn't cover the ground. No one's putting pressure on Riley O'Brien now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, internally, maybe, because, like, I think, if you saw preseason this year, like the previous year, he was beating Rob up at the stoppages and everything because of his sheer height.
When has O'Brien ever got up for a preseason game?
Well, it's a good point. But it's like, I think, Rob started the season slow and finished the season very slow. His middle section of the season was fantastic. We know that. And then the contract hit. But I'd like to think that there's enough there for McAndrew to make the selectors think. They won't. They'll still play Rob. But he's not terrible, Fiend. Like, the big difference to him and Strawn is the height. They're both quite skinny. But he's got, 5+ centimetres on Strawny. And it makes a difference. I used to think Darcy Fort wasn't much chop, and now he's won 2 flags, and he was great this year in particular for Brisbane. So sometimes these guys can surprise you in the later stages of their career. You know, he's only 25, I think, Lockie. So ruck's peak late, as we know. Um, his biggest issue is his marking. He's not a great mark. You know, for a guy that tall, he doesn't take enough marks, and it's going to get exposed even more at AFL level, which he has played a couple of games, but nothing really. Look, his contested work in terms of his work at stoppage is fine. It's actually not bad at all. But yeah, if he doesn't become a better mark, he's going to get outpointed quite a bit by like your Max Gorns and whatnot, who are fantastic contested marks. He'll be embarrassed by it if he's not careful. So that's if he gets a game, of course. But look, it's definitely still an area we need to keep addressing. I'm still more than up for us taking a ruck in the draft this year if there's one that we have our eyes on. Sorry, but it just doesn't seem to be something we do, is it? We seem to just wait for someone else from another club, and we seem pretty content with Rob at the moment. So yeah.
Look, and I'm not a proponent on spending money on a ruckman just for the sake of it. I think a really good ruckman can make a world of difference. Max Gawn comes to mind. Brodie Grundy when he's on song comes to mind. I think Cherry's been pretty good for North. After that, it's a bit of a muchness. The problem that I have is that O'Brien is a player traditionally that needs pressure coming, and short of pinning a contract to the football, I don't know how else we're going to put pressure on him to lift his game. I don't think he's going to get pressure from McAndrew, and I would have liked to have.
That's not good, is it, Fiend? Like, we're talking about a guy that's in our leadership group every year, and we're saying this about him. It's not good enough.
But I mean, we kind of thought he might have turned a corner mid-season, and then unfortunately, the moment that contract got signed, he fell back to his old ways, and to me, that was an absolute indictment on his mindset. And he may not even be aware of it, but if he reviewed his season in an honest manner, then he would be able to see it. He's not a dumb bloke; he's a smart fella. He would be able to see it and see that subconsciously, it obviously has an impact on him. So he's going to have to overcome that. But I just don't like the fact that we don't have any pressure on him from underneath.
Just have to look at the best and fairest results, Fee. He finished 10th, played every game. He was going a lot better than 10th until the last section of the year.
Correct.
He fell down and down and down. Why is that? Because it was after his contract.
And the thing of it is, at his best, he's more than serviceable. He takes marks around the ground. You know, he competes. He's not a great centre bounce ruckman, but he's pretty decent at stoppage. You just need him to take marks around the ground or at least compete. But as soon as he saw his contract signed, you didn't even see him in contests around the ground. And what was worse, he started to get involved in general play in chains, and that's not where you need your ruckman. And to me, that's him actually being lazy, not getting to contests and just thinking, I'll just drop in this spot. So
he's a conundrum
about that.
Old mate. He's notoriously hard worker, but he can be really lazy sometimes. He's really hard one to gauge. But you're right, Fiend. And look, I think when he's at his best, he's essentially a tagging ruckman. He doesn't let other ruckmen have their own way. So he negates the opposite of ruckman, which is great. But as soon as he drops off, they get a hold of him, and they did.
Yeah. So look, we'll have to see how that progresses. I would have liked to seen the club pick someone up just to put a bit of pressure on him. Just a mature age ruckman.
They might still.
Maybe. Now, where were we? So, Finbar's good. Now, the contentious one, of course, is the one that we all thought was just a fait accompli, which is Archie Ah Chee. And Brisbane decided to be bloody arseholes.
This is a weird one, Fiend. What's weird, Fiend, is that, like, obviously I pay a fair bit of attention to the media, and I really like the guys on Gettable. They know their stuff. And that was saying, as soon as they started cropping up around August/September, this Ah Chee thing. They were saying this is going to go the distance to the last 5 minutes of trade week. And I remember thinking, one, I disagree. And two, why are they saying that like it's just bound to happen? But that's exactly what happened. It's like they knew. The center of this whole debate and the back and forth and posturing and all this stuff, it's a bizarre one to me, Finn. I can't believe Ah Chee is the one that sort of had to cop this.
Now, I just had a little dropout, so...
Oh.
I'm
From my end?
Make sure. No, I think I had a little glitch in the matrix here with my internet. Let me just check to make sure that...
Sam Tronica said no
YouTube.
dropout here.
That's all right. We'll just continue for now. Look, I don't understand what Brisbane are trying to achieve. They kind of say, well, you know, we didn't want to. We wanted to send a message. You know, we think he's worth this, that, and the other. They were never getting pick 16 from us. Never, ever, ever getting pick 16 from us. And they
Reid
said that we offered a
Reid,
future. Man, you
so
really are good.
I'm glad Reid. It's because like my thing doesn't like I'm always a little bit behind, so sometimes I cut in when I think there's a gap to say something and there's not. But I apologize. But yeah, so I was just saying Reid put that on the table. Like he said, 16 is not happening. Like a future pick's not happening. So he made it pretty clear. Like he wasn't bullshitting around.
Yeah, and you know, future second and future third. I think there were reports that we tried to get some other clubs involved. I think Port Adelaide at one stage we tried to get involved to get a few more points for them. But Archie was uncontracted, so you lose your leverage straight away when he's uncontracted. And even though we're down the ranks in terms of the preseason draft, everyone knows that no one's going to poach a player like that when he's committed to a club and the club can just whack a big 2-year contract up to price everyone else out. And clubs aren't of a mind to go poaching or picking other clubs' pockets. So I don't know what they were thinking. And what it shows to me, big man, is the two-tier economy that currently exists in the player market in the AFL, because we look at pick 16 as a valuable pick, whereas Brisbane look at pick 16 as points. It's a completely different way of looking at the draft. We look at picks, they look at points, because they've got so many, you know, academy players and all the rest of it available to them. The way they view the draft and the way that they work their calculations is completely different to a Port Adelaide or a Adelaide or West Coast or Fremantle, and that's something that's got to be addressed, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, you well said, Finn. Like in fairness to Brisbane, most of their like big picks that have acquired points have been father sons more than academy. They do have an academy player this year though, who's probably going to go in the top 5 or so, in Dan Annable. So you're right, and this is the case of Gold Coast, and even Sydney have like about 2 or 3 academy kids this year that they're going to take. So, and is it a surprise, Fiend, that the 2 clubs that had the biggest bounties to give up to opposition clubs for these players, and Charlie Curnow and Christian Petrarca, were academy teams? So they can afford to
and
give
look
up
at the
ridiculous
amount of bloody picks that they gave up for those players. Like there was no way any other club was going to pick up was going to throw away picks like that. What did Gold Coast gave? What, 6 and 7 or
7
something?
and 8. 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Imagine us doing that. Phil. Could you imagine us doing that?
And they threw it away like it was confetti.
Yep. So, it's bizarre. As you said, it's a totally different economy, because they can afford to get rid of picks or trade them into the future, because they know they've got gun players already locked into their thing. They just got to get points for them. They've already got their first round picks already. It's essentially they've already drafted them, and everything they get is a bonus. And they got now they get a Petrarca as well, because they don't need all these picks.
That's right.
I'm going to be honest, it's fucked. It's completely fucked. And the AFL either don't care or just, don't think it's a big issue or, or whatever, like that, because it is affecting a lot of teams and we're one of them because our academy system is virtually non-existent compared to what they offer the northern teams.
No. Don't be confused. Our academy system is completely like there are two types of academies. There's a next generation academy, and then there's a football talent academy. We don't have access to the talent academy. We only have an NGA, and they actually have like the Northern Academy is not an NGA. That's like every kid in freaking Queensland and Northern Territory. It's completely different.
And it's ridiculous, Finn. Like Cooper Hodges in their academy next year, as far as I'm aware, and he's the son of a 300+ Norm Smith melodist in Luke Hodge. Jed Walter went to Gold Coast. He grew up in WA, loving football. Like these are not the guys that these academies were supposed to be created for. It was supposed to be people that would have normally played other sports, particularly rugby or soccer, and instead got them playing footy because there was an opportunity there. But there's no leash on this dog. Like it's running wild and it's affecting clubs not because because they're getting elite talent, but also because they're dealing with monopoly money. And there's no way where you can really.
And I'm sure that if a non-Crow supporter was listening to this podcast, they'd be thinking, all right, here they go whinging about it again. But you've got to look at it this way. The Eastern States clubs, particularly the expansion clubs, have needed to be propped up. There's no problem with GWS and Gold Coast needing to be propped up to get them started. I would argue about Brisbane, though. I don't know necessarily why Brisbane gets access to the academy, but all right, they do. Sydney's the same. When they first went up there, they needed some help and they had the cola and all the rest of it. But now they also have access to an academy. The Victorian clubs have access to a massive pool of talent and also the draw of playing in Victoria, in the biggest market in the country. So they don't have the issues. It's the South Australian and Western Australian teams that have difficulties. Western Australia's got the tyranny of distance. And South Australia's got the perceived unattractiveness of living in Adelaide. I say perceived because I don't know why, because it's the best city in the country. But anyway, so I think in my opinion, the way to resolve this is to give everyone an academy and give everyone equal access to their academy. You could split South Australia down the middle and give half to Port, half to Adelaide. You could do the same in WA. Victoria has a massive pool and they already have, associated VFL teams, and those VFL teams have associations. You could split up zones quite easily in Victoria. To me, I like academies because I think it does allow the opportunity for teams to pick players out of their own state, which obviously has some lowers the risk of jumping ship, and it also I think gives some reward for the investment of time and effort in developing those kids. A lot. Look, in Queensland, there's more kids registered at the moment to play AFL than there are to play NRL. It's a massive achievement by the AFL to get that sort of an uptake. But it shouldn't. What happens to 95% of those kids? They're not all playing for the Southport Sharks. So they're not really getting fed into the system. It's only the top couple that are getting fed into the system, and the rest of them are just by the wayside. So I think it does need to change, and rather than taking away academies, I would actually like to see every club have access to an academy with some priority access to players from that academy. I think that would be the fairest way to go. What do you think?
Oh boy, I'm probably a bit different. I think something either the ones in northern states have to change to be very much more in line with what we already have here or in Victoria, or they just don't have academies. And I understand that have what the benefits have been of having the academies in terms of getting, because there have been more New South Wales and Queensland guns come through than we in the last 10 years than they probably were in the 20 years prior to that. There's no doubt it's had an impact, but it's gone too far. So, and if it doesn't be addressed, I mean, it's not going to be addressed now, but if it's not addressed soon, then it's just going to keep becoming a bigger issue. And look, I don't want to get too doomsday about this whole thing because, like for the majority, in terms of their premiership, Brisbane, like as I said, a lot of it's based on father sons, but just a lot of good drafting and trading as well. So I don't want to be a sore loser and say, oh, it's just Brisbane are only doing it because only winning flags because their academy. That's not the case, but we're seeing now like the impact of that at trade week, and we will soon see it with Gold Coast, I'm imagining, in terms of premierships and whatnot. And it's becoming too unfair a playing field. So yeah, I'd almost either draw back their academies or just get rid of them altogether. Because right now what we have is it's not working now, and I think it's going to escalate in the next few years as well.
The only reason why I'm in favour of retaining them and extending them to the foundation football states is because I worry about the long-term viability of the comp in Queensland and to a lesser degree New South Wales if there isn't some sort of elite pathway. And I think the academy pathway is a very good way of engaging kids and getting them involved in AFL football at a young age. And I think if we pulled that, it might undermine those sides. And, like it or lump it, they're here to stay and we need them to be financially viable and we need them to be successful. They're still not pulling the crowds that they need to be. Yeah. So there's a long way to go. So that's the main reason why I lean towards saying, all right, you have your academies, but it's now time that the foundation football states also have access to an academy. Like, Adelaide, Sydney had the cost of living allowance. Well, Adelaide and Western Australia should have the furthest away from Victoria allowance, and Adelaide should have the least desirable place to play football apparently allowance. I mean, that's what's happening. That's right. The foundation states are being. Oh my goodness! Honestly. I
love Tasmania. I think it's a beautiful place, but it's going to cop it because of its weather and whatnot, and just being isolated. Yeah, I know.
You don't play footy there. You got to live there.
Oh, it's a beautiful place, but it's not the easiest place to live, I'd imagine.
I'll tell you what, 6-month Airbnbs are going to go off. I'm going to buy a property down there and put it on a 6-month lease and make a fortune.
One thing I will say, Fiend, about the academy is one thing they've got to get rid of is any player that would have absolutely played football even without the academy system. Like I said, Jed Walters is a great example. Nick Blakey should never have been part of Sydney's academy. I'm sorry.
No, of course not.
How many games did John Blakey play? As if he was never going to play footy. That's not what this is meant for. Dougie Cochrane's probably going to get put through their academy because of some supposed Indigenous heritage. Stuart Cochrane played plenty of games for Port Adelaide and North Melbourne and whatnot. Like he's come from a football family, so that in particular irks me because that's just free. That's just a free gun for the sake of it.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Anyway, look. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that over the course of the next few years. They're always tweaking it, and it always seems to go against us when we've got a father-son coming up or an NGA coming up. Or like Nad should be in our bloody side, but we overlooked him, idiots. But I bet you if we'd have had access to him via some sort of allowance, we would have picked him up.
The good thing is we didn't stuff up the pick itself. We didn't do a maxi there. We got Rochelle. Rochelle was a great pick. He's not as good as Naz, but he's a great pick, and he's been very important for retaining players at the club. I think it's underestimated just how important he is with the culture of the young group.
Look, all that. I love Rash and acknowledge what you're saying, but those who were listening to the podcast back then would remember Peter J, who's no longer on this podcast, but was a bit of a stalwart and watched a lot of junior football, was an absolute, could not stop talking about Messiah, could not stop talking about him, and would have happily taken him at 6.
Yep.
So,
I mean,
he
was apparently
a lot of people on him.
the fullback for us. If Rochelle somehow went to Gold Coast or whatnot, but oh yeah, look, there's no doubt there's a talent differential there, but the great thing is it's still a great pick.
Well, what I'm saying is that were we Gold Coast, we would have got both. That's what I'm saying. That's the difference. We would have got both, and that's the difference between a side in the Eastern States with an academy or a side in WA or South Australia. No chance we'd have both. So that's what's got to change, because it has a two-pronged effect. It has the impact on available talent, but it also has the impact on the value of picks being different depending on which club you talk to. You know, we will take this pick 16 or whatever it turns out to be to the draft, and we'll get a best available South Australian talent, maybe, or best available talent. Brisbane or Gold Coast couldn't give a shit about pick 16. Could not care less.
No,
like it's a completely different value set.
Second rounders and stuff like we need these picks. You know, like still, like we don't have anything to play around with. It's just these picks and nothing else really. So, and we should probably link it back to talking about Archie, because we went on a bit of a tangent here, but you know, I'll tell you what the great thing is about this whole Archie thing is that right from the outset, as soon as this whole trade period was done, Ben Williams was standing next to Justin Reid and really getting into Brisbane and being on our side, which makes such a difference. And I think another good thing is that, and this doesn't matter as much, but for the media hate our guts, so they can't wait to say nasty things about us, and yet they're backing us in. Almost all of them are backing us in for what we offered and whatnot, and believe that Brisbane were the unreasonable ones. So it's nice to not be the villain here.
No, but by the same token, you can't. I don't think you can knock Brisbane, because they're operating in a completely different mindset. You know, and to them, they can make a point. It costs them nothing to make a point, right? To say, well, stuff you if you're not going to give us anything that's of value to us. The problem is that what's of value to them is of much greater value to us, and that's the bottom line. The only thing that I was surprised about was at the end of the day, because there was I think whatever combinations we offered up to them, it amounted to about 500 points that we offered to them. So which was really what an uncontracted role player is worth, who's 28.
Yeah. And the talk is like Reid said, we offered 29 and 500 points of draft, index value. There probably was something coming back, which he probably didn't mention because it hurts his the image a bit. But yeah, I think like for us to get on the front foot and offer that apparently like the week prior, which was shut down by the Lions, and then we apparently organised with Swans to get pick 32 plus some later picks for them to use as points. Again, turned down. So we actually were being reasonably proactive.
They basically didn't want to take anything less than our pick 16.
Yeah, they wanted the slide to 23, but I mean that could be the difference between a good player and a not so good player. Like especially in this draft.
That's what I'm saying. The difference in the value, right? So anyway, so Callum is left having to go through the preseason draft, and this is why I was surprised that in the end the Brisbane didn't go, well, stuff is, we'll do it, but we don't like it, because he's a 2-time premiership player for them. They wouldn't have won their first flag unless he had an absolute blinder of a bloody game in the prelim in 24. They've already farewelled him at the BNF. His family's moved to Adelaide, and now there is a slim chance that he's not going to get to where he wants to go. Now, why would you do that?
He can't trust the system enough to be shopping for a home here and
no, that's correct.
Buying a house and stuff. He's got him and his family have to wait. Like that's stuff like that. He's got to adjust to the city and figure out things before preseason starts. And he can't do anything. He has to like until draft night. So it's very
That's right.
unfortunate. And I think like there's a it's about the human element to that and to this. And we don't really know Archie yet much because he hasn't had much to do with us. But it's even now, even then, I think a lot of us agree that it's pretty harsh on a bloke who's given a lot to that club. And yeah, when you're at a contract Fiend, I just feel like, as you said, you lose a lot of your bargaining power, and this just felt like a weird one to get weird about from Brisbane's perspective.
It was a strange hill for them to die on.
I know the message they're trying to send is, we're not going to accept unders, but you've accepted nothing now. So now, in some ways, you're probably painting yourself as a target, particularly if Archie gets through to us. Now, if Archie somehow gets sniped by a Port Adelaide or some other, or Essendon or someone, I mean, I don't think it will, because clubs are so reluctant to pick players they don't, when they haven't been tracking them, they haven't interviewed and whatnot. But if let's say Port did it out of pure spite, that would be the only scenario where Brisbane sort of win out here. And even then, they still get nothing. It's just going forward, they might have a bit more bargaining power. But if he goes to us, it's done nothing for them. Probably hurt their image, and we get a player for free, and it's crazy. It's just a weird turn of events. Hopefully, it goes the way we all hope, and he gets to us. But I'm sure he's not feeling too good right now, Archie.
No, but what it does do is it highlights the contrived nature of the whole trade draft mechanism, because at the end of the day, it will only take one court case to blow the whole AFL trade system out of the water, because it actually is illegal because of restraint of trade and yada yada yada. We all know that. So, isn't it about time that the competition matured and allowed for clubs to trade players without players' consent? I've been banging on about this for years now, and I think it's a mature, they're now getting paid enough money. The base salary is now sufficient, in my opinion, for that system to come into place, and I think it's long overdue. And you would then cut through all this crap, the only reason the preseason, it's not even a draft, it's just a mechanism to deal with these sorts of situations. It's an absolute contrived mess. We've got blokes on a rookie list who are 28, 29 years old, for God's sake. It's a complete mess, and they need to clean it up. And one of the easiest things that they could do, if they got the AFLPA on board, which shouldn't be hard because they're in the same building, is just to have open slather.
That's the problem. The AFLPA, they're weak as water, mate. They would hate something like this to happen. I'd hate it.
Well, the AFLPA are not independent. They are basically a negotiating arm of the AFL. The only time the AFLPA get up and about is during broadcast rights. I mean, have we heard anything from the AFLPA about Archie's situation, for example? Or did we hear anything from the AFLPA about Isaac Rankin's situation? Did we hear anything about the Bailey Smith situation? They're an absolute toothless tiger. They're just a conveyor belt for blokes like Paddy Dangerfield to get some work experience before he becomes AFL CEO. That's what it boils down to.
It's not a bad point. One thing I will say, about this scenario, you're proposing, is it does it go both ways then? That players, there's no restraint to trade. Players have to, if they ask for one, even in contract, they have to be traded. Is that how it would go?
Well, I think I like the NBA system. We wouldn't do it. The NBA system is very no. Let me clarify that. The NBA system is very complex, but I like a system where players are entitled to certain contract levels depending on their years of service in the league, and they can dictate where they what money they put on their head. Like, you see the situation with Josh Giddey recently. I just think it needs to be open, and I think the clubs need to get some sort of power back in the situation, because at the moment the clubs clubs are damned if they do and damned if they don't. And how can you manage your list under those circumstances?
It's tough. Like even the Zach Merritt one, they've copped a lot for keeping him. Let alone, they kept a player to his contract, and they copped it from fans and non-fans and stuff. Not just because they've given off an opportunity to get lots of draft picks, but also just keeping a player who didn't want to be there. Like, I think I don't agree with that, to be honest. That sentiment. I think that it's important in some ways, to keep these contracted players. And I'd like to
Absolutely.
think if we went back 10 years and when we were getting players who were contracted like Charlie Cameron and Mitch McGovern, who demanded to leave, I'd like to think that these days we would retain them rather than just give them up.
100%. I 100% agree. I think, players at the moment have the luxury of signing these big, long contracts. Look at Petrarca and Oliver. You can't tell me that part of the motivation for them seeking new deals is because they were in the back end of a front-loaded contract. And we've seen that happen before, where players have moved after the initial front-loading period has finished, and all of a sudden, I want a new contract. Like, it's completely cynical, and what's the point in having it? What's the point in a club signing a 5-year deal if it doesn't give them any surety that they're going to retain that player for the 5 years at the term of the contract? Now, I have no problem at all with Essendon holding Merritt to his contract, and I think it's beholden upon Merritt, and I'm not saying that he won't, by the way, but it's beholden on Merritt to turn up day one of pre-season and be just as professional as he has always been. The real villain in that situation, just digressing somewhat for a moment, is Sam Mitchell. Sam Mitchell is the one that blew all that up by having a public conversation with Zach and luring him to consider Hawthorn, and that was completely unprofessional. And I've got a lot of time for Sam Mitchell's coaching, but he's an arrogant pig, and he just thought that he could swoop in and nick the captain from the arch rival. And good on Essendon, in my opinion, for holding Merritt to his contract.
Yeah, well, I actually thought you were going to go a different way. I thought you were going to blame white t-shirt Tom Petroro there.
No, it was Mitchell kicked all this off. All of this could have happened behind closed doors.
But this is like, I don't know how much role Petroro played in the initial meetings, whether it was Merritt's decision or Petroro's, but Petroro needed to make sure that he knew that this deal would get done before even allowing Merritt to meet with Hawthorn, because all he's done is blown it up, and he makes Zach look bad. I mean, I don't care what he's made done to Hawthorn. Hawthorn gets stuff, but he's made it an issue now for Zach, let alone for Essendon.
No. Zach's made an issue for Zach.
No.
Big man. No. I understand what you're saying about Petroro should have been working his ass off behind the scenes. I understand that.
Oh, before the trade period. Way before.
Yeah, but don't forget Essendon had a change in CEOs or GMs or chairman or whoever it was. Andrew Welsh came in.
Oh, with Welsh.
So
yeah.
the attitude changed. So that might have been a situation that got away from him.
Possibly.
But the two people complicit in this are Sam Mitchell and Zach Merritt. Now, Zach Merritt signed a deal 3 or 4 years ago or whatever it was to be at Essendon for 7 years or however long his contract was. And he placed a bet. He placed a bet that the team would improve and play finals in that period of time. Now, he lost the bet, big man. It's as simple as that. And I don't know. I placed a bet on the Everest on the weekend and I lost that bet and I didn't get my money back. There's no backsies. Like, you sign a contract, And sure, they might have been able to work out a deal but it has to be a deal that works for both parties. And if you don't have a deal that works for both parties, then I'm sorry. You front up day one pre-season and you act professionally and get on with your career.
I think it brings up too is just the amount of players that are looking to be poached out of, like, when they're in contract, and in some cases in contract for a number of years. Like, look, Petrarca maybe wasn't so much poaching as Melbourne wanting him to get it, to him to move on. But like Curnow is probably on the more the poaching side, I think, and certainly Merritt was absolutely that was Essendon never really intended to get rid of him. So it's amazing. Like usually, like from our perspective as a Crows, like we wait for players to come out of contract and then go for them. I think we've been pretty clear. Like that's what we've been doing. How many players have we traded in that were actually in contracts? I think it'd be very minimal, under Reid especially. But clubs at the moment are going after. Yeah, but clubs now you're seeing clubs going for for players that have like 6+ years, 5-6 years. Clayton Oliver's another example. Brian Marshall,
this is the thing.
like
yeah, and these blokes. They get approached by so Merritt gets approached by Hawthorn. Hawthorn should have preempted that with a conversation with Patrol Row to say, what do you think? Are we going to be able to get a deal done here? What's your attitude? What's your relationship with Essendon like? Blah 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 blah. What's your read on it? Before they even approach that Merritt, it's the same with St Kilda and Geelong and Marshall.
Yeah.
It's I think it should be cut and dried. I think that the club owns the contract and the player owns the money. So I'm player X and I sign a 4-year deal worth $1 million a year, right? The moment that I sign that contract, one way or the other, I'm getting $1 million a year for the next 4 years minimum, right? What the club does with that contract is up to them. If they want to sell it to another club or do something, that's fine. But as a player, as long as I get my $1 million a year or more on a renegotiation, that's the extent of my ownership of the situation. At the moment, the clubs don't own the contracts, and that's the problem. The clubs don't own the contracts in a figurative sense, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, and opposition clubs know that. And they make moves on these contracted players.
100%. Yeah.
It does, to me, it does reek of
arrogance
arrogance a bit too, though. Like, Hawthorn knew what they were doing, They knew that was going to cause problems. You're going after the captain of a team everyone, that's essentially, Essendon are Hawthorn to Essendon are basically like Port to us.
Yeah.
And, it's just the arrogance to think that was going to go somehow along smoothly and get done is crazy to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine us
look
doing
at the
that.
difference.
Put it that way.
You look at the difference between that, and I know it's a restricted free agency, but Oscar Allen going to Brisbane. So that was on the cards from the middle of the year. He basically told West Coast, I mean, it was a little bit messy, but he told West Coast he was leaving. And that was all, done and dusted. So I don't know. And they've got to sort it out. I don't think they will, because I think the AFL don't give a shit, to be honest.
If anything, they probably like the concept.
Yeah, they like the theatre. Yeah, they like the theatre. So anyway, finishing off on Callum, we've got to wait until he's got to wait until the pre-season draft, which is on the 21st of November, isn't it? Thereabouts.
The draft's the 21st. Yeah, so I just forget if it's before or after the draft because it goes over 2 nights.
I think it's after. Anyway, round about then. Yeah. Anyway, so not a great situation for him. There is a small chance that we could get our pockets picked. Not beyond the realms of possibility that Port have a crack. They're quite entitled to have a crack. Under the current rules, he'd be moving to Adelaide anyway. So it's not as if
Yeah, they would want to. They're the only one I could see it happening, and that would be under the assumption that they get in contact somehow with Ben Williams. He did say he's not going to answer calls and whatnot, but if they were somehow to get through to him and get convince Archie that Port's not a bad option, that's the only one I could see happening. Because if they were just to poach him out of the blue, they would be pissing off the manager Nazai Wangi-Miller, who I'm sure they want in 1 or 2 years' time, and. He also manages a few other players like Jason Francis, Connor Rosie, whatnot. So I don't think they would want to piss off Ben Williams. So unless they could actually coerce Archie and Williams to come there in between now and the preseason draft, then I don't think they would take that risk.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but stranger things have happened. All right. Okay, so that leaves us with where we're sitting in the draft, and we'll do a little bit of a quick chat about the draft, although I'd like to probably cover that closer to the time. But we've obviously got, what is that, pick 16 and pick 48. Pick 16 will probably drop down to about pick 19 or something or other. I think there's three.
Yeah, I think almost three? Unless depending on what the clubs in front of us do, like the ones that got academy or father son players, it might depend on that. But it's most likely going to end up being pick 20. It'll be pushed out to pick 20 regardless.
So without spending another 300 years looking at possible draftees, Dyson Sharp is obviously the top-rated South Australian on the list. Any chance he gets down to us?
I don't know if he is the highest now. I think in terms of what the AFL, in terms of what the general media say, it would be Sharp because he's been in the system, he's been a big name now in the system for a couple of years now. But I actually think Sam Cumming. Yeah, look, things can change, but I think Sam Cumming might be the preferred option for some clubs just because he's got that extra pace and versatility. Sharp's more of a contest-to-contest midfielder. He's not blessed athletically, but I tell you what, he's impossible to tackle. He's one of those guys that always gets through the ball. So he's a bit like Matt Crouch, I guess, in some ways. Although he's a bigger boy than Matt Crouch and he's better in the air and whatnot. So I don't think he gets to our pick, Finn. I think it'd be very doubtful. Actually, almost certainly doesn't get to our pick. If we trade up, how far would we have to trade up to do it? I'm not sure. You'd probably want to trade up before draft night because if he was to slide to a Hawthorn or whatnot, I think they would just take him rather than entertain a pick swap anyway. So I don't think he's one we can really consider unless we're hearing rumblings of a big trade swap. But to be fair, Reid did say they'll look at a trade swap of some kind, particularly now that we've got our full suite of picks next year. But I'm not sure that would get enough picks up in the draft to be able to snare a Dyson Sharp or a Sam Cumming. So I'd imagine both are off the table, unfortunately.
Yeah, Toomey's got Cumming at 15, Mitch Marsh at 14. They're the three big name South Aussies. There are a couple of others.
Son of Ben.
Further down, Jev Philippou has got raps from some players. He's
an interesting one, Philippou. So obviously he's the brother of Mateus. He's a little bit different. He's a bit shorter. I think he's just as confident. He like his brother, he was asked, who they would, players were asked who they'd select at number one. And of course he said himself, just like his brother did. But no, he's interesting. He's very much like a Stevie J type. He gets the ball and he looks like he has the ability to change his mind multiple times with the ball in his hands and not just take first option all the time, which is a good trait to have. It can sometimes get you in trouble. For the most part, it doesn't. He's good overhead. He's actually quite good athletically. I think, he broke his arm this year, so he was a bit underdone and missed the championships. He could get to our pick. I still think there'd be a couple of clubs that think he's actually like a really high level talent and go early. He might be one if we are able to trade up that I think we could potentially be in the spot for at our pick, which, you look at Toomey's top 30, whatever or not, we're essentially pick 20 in this scenario because this includes academy picks. I don't think he gets to our pick that we have currently, but it's not out of the realm of possibility, particularly if we trade up, Feng. But I'm actually quite keen on him.
Well, the only thing that I would say against that, mate, is that there's been a propensity over the last couple of years for South Aussies to come home. And I just wonder whether that makes certain clubs a little bit more risk-averse, particularly the lower clubs, like your Norths and those sort of clubs that have enough trouble retaining players as it is. And I'm kind of hopeful. I don't think that Sharp gets to us, although the one that I really would like is Cumming. That's the lad that I would really like. I think he fits what we need, and I think he's a very good prospect. If he could somehow slip down to our pick, I would be quite happy for us to take him. I wouldn't mind betting that if both of those lads drop out, I wouldn't mind betting that we trade out.
Potentially. Yeah, it's so hard, even like particularly at this stage, it's hard to gauge how many players we have interest in, we've been linked to, and hopefully as the draft gets closer, we know which players those are. And it doesn't have to be South Australian, of course. Hamish is he does go local more than not, but it's certainly not to the levels of like a West Coast or whatnot. He's more than happy to take a Victorian with a high pick. I don't know. Like I couldn't say the way fiend, but I think there's another one positive about this year's draft, which is being talked about a lot as being a very weak draft, and it is definitely on the weaker side. I think it's probably comparable to say a 2016 or a 2022, where there's no real standout talent. But the one good thing about this year's draft is that, and this is not surprising because South Australia cleaned up the national championships, but there's actually quite a lot of reasonable South Australian talent this year. It runs quite deep. I think there could be up to a dozen South Australians taken, which is really high. And unfortunately, there's not enough. There's not a heap of Victorians or WA kids this year, but the South Australian talent pool is actually pretty reasonable. So I think there's enough there. There'll be a lot of talk about Harley Barker, who's did his ACL midway through the year, but he's a wingman who really quick and stuff. So he'll be talked about. You mentioned Marsh, who's obviously the son of Ben. Probably goes before our pick, but he's like, I'm definitely interested in him, even though he's not a great contested mark. He's that third tall.
I just think he's a bit of a tweener. I reckon he's a bit of a tweener.
They said that about Logan Morris. They thought he was not too slow and too short to be a key forward.
Yeah, but Mitch doesn't take marks like Logan Morris.
No, but geez, he's very silky with it. And Gunston was never a great mark, coming through as a junior. I think there's something there, but he might not even get to our pick.
I'm not saying he's not a bad footballer.
Aiden Schubert, if he was born just over a week later, he'd be in next year's draft. So he's a basketball convert who's he's built like a stick, but I think he'll be quite big in time. He's got really broad shoulders. He's got a long way to go, but he's pretty clean, and he's that sort of ruck forward type. Maybe he slides to us, maybe he goes early. It really depends. There's clubs with multiple picks at this stage: Essendon, Richmond, West Coast, Melbourne, in the top 10, which means there's a chance like key position players, they'll take a midfielder and a key position player. So those sort of types might go before our pick. But we're definitely on the lower end of like the talent level in terms of the high end talent in the draft with that first pick. But I still think there could be something gets there, and I'm not against us trading up this year. Although I'm not sure I'd trade out of next year's draft, not just because next year's draft is supposed to be pretty reasonably strong, but also just because it gives you less collateral at the trade table. And we saw this year it's pretty important to have those high picks, particularly to get players that are in contract. You don't want to give up your bargaining power at the trade table either, just to move up a few spots in this draft.
Now, one you didn't mention is, and any time you see this surname, you prick your ears up. The young lad, Latrell Pickett from the Bays.
Yeah.
Small forward is something we don't have. Well, we do, but we wanted to play midfield. He could certainly drop down.
I don't think we have many crumbing forwards. I think we have mids, like sort of players who, like a Rochelle type. I wouldn't call him a crumbing forward. He can crumb, but he's sort of a roamer. Same goes for Neil Borland. Same goes for Archie probably as well. He's probably a better contested marker than he is a ground ball player. Pickett probably would give us something different in that regard. He's the only thing. There's a couple of things about him is that he's one. He defensively he's not great. Like he doesn't love the tackle. The really hard stuff. Which is a bit different to Cozzy's cousin. And the other thing is that he don't get me wrong, he kicked bags. He kicked a bag on debut for Glenelg seniors this year, which is great. But he also had some really quiet games, and he was played majority, reserves this year. as a 19/20-year-old. So like he wasn't absolutely killing it. So you're still really going on flashes and little bits there. And I'm sure there's a few clubs that like him. I'd be surprised if we took him with our first pick, and I'd be almost certain he doesn't get to our second pick. So I think he might be some awkwardly in between our picks at this stage. But I could be wrong.
Do we take Dan's bro with our second pick?
Oh, that's interesting. I tell you what, one thing I loved. Did you see that interview with him over on Channel 10 with his brother?
No, I didn't.
He did. Yeah, there was a clip taken. I think it might have been Channel 10 News over in Perth, and they were interviewing Cody as well as Dan. They were standing next to each other, and Cody was talking about how much he'd love to get picked up by the Crows, and he gets along well with the players, and he feels like he's sort of already part of that group. And I was like, this is the same guy that, if you remember Dan Curtin when we picked him up, his brother was almost in tears. Like
he was distraught. Yeah.
Oh, he was absolutely devastated. So he's changed his tune a fair bit, and that's a great sign. It just shows how much Dan's enjoying himself at the Crows. Again, it could be that sort of situation where he's in between our picks. I think he slides more than Pickett will, though. Certainly not taking with our first pick, but that second pick, maybe his 2K time trial, he actually did really quite well on it, despite being a really big guy. He's probably got to lose a bit of weight, to be honest, if anything.
Yeah.
And he's bigger than Dan, but he's also a bit clumsier. He's not as clean or as quick and agile. He's a big boy though, and he's got a lot of intensity. He's very competitive, and I think if he can just clunk these marks and stuff, he's going to be really hard to stop. The question will be his follow up and recovery. But he looks like Dan out there at times with his gait. He's got that funny Curtin gait. Yeah, there's something there. He definitely hasn't lived up to the hype he had going into this year. He was being talked up about it as a first rounder. That won't happen anymore. But he could get to our second pick. If he did, I'd probably go there. And not just because it's the Curtin name, but because I just think guys his size don't grow on trees. But he's a massive kid.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'd pick him if he was there. I think there's enough to work with, at least to have a look at. Pick 48 or whatever it'll end up being, 256, is, you're not spending a huge amount. It's a list spot, yes, but it has some positive off-field vibes about it as well. He'll learn a lot in the SANFL. Benefit from Tex being around for at least 1 year. What does that mean for Tyler Welsh? Tyler Welsh has really not come on at all, has he?
Oh, he cops a bit from us, doesn't he? Like, because he didn't turn up to preseason training in the greatest condition. We saw how he went in the testing last year. He was like last in the 2K time trial and whatnot. And that just puts you on the back foot when it comes to the elite level. You just can't be turning up like that. So there's probably a bit going on there behind the scenes, we're not aware of, but he's got to take control of his destiny there and get into the condition he needs to. It's going to be a real litmus test how he turns up at preseason. If he's anything like he was last year, then you can almost write him off just there then and there. Because
I think it's critical that he strips fitter and comes to play. He should if he wants to play AFL football, he needs to have a 40-goal SANFL season.
Yeah.
There's two ways about it.
And it just starts in November when he comes back, and I think the coaches will almost put a stamp on him if he doesn't turn up in good condition. It doesn't have to be, six-pack abs and winning the time trials, but he's got to be leagues ahead of what he was this time last year. And also, like, for him, it's affected his football too. Like, his condition, he's just not come on. And
no.
It's a shame too, because I think we all, about 3 or 4 years ago, we were really excited about him. He was dominating juniors, and his underage year,
when the ball comes to him, he looks really good. The problem is that the ball's got to come to him. He doesn't go to the ball.
He looked so bereft of confidence by the end of the year. He was just nowhere. And he just didn't look great at all. So, there's plenty of reasons to be doubtful, but like I guess we just hope that he can regain some of his confidence and ability, and a lot of it will come just through hard work. Because he is quick and he can take a bloody mark. But for whatever reason, it's all deserted him, and he's only got 1 year left, and that's it. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, he turns it around. But you'd have to say we have to put it this way: it's good that we're looking at more forward options going forward, because he'll probably have to be replaced. It's a shame.
It's a problem with the system, because you got 40 odd blokes on a list, and the coaches tend to gravitate to those that show promise and work ethic and all the rest of it, whereas often it's lads like Tyler who need more one-on-one and more, for better or worse, they need more of attention. But it's the promising ones that end up getting all the attention. So, and that means that the blokes in Tyler's position need to be really self-motivated and to be really driven, or else they just, become another player that was on a list for 2 years. So he's really got to really take the bit between the teeth, because no one's gonna help him unless he asks for it, and he's got to show that he's worth the time and effort that they need to put into him.
But
so
I actually hope he does ask for it.
I hope he does
ask for it. I'd love for him to go to senior play and say, the one that's based in Adelaide, and say, hey, can you help me,
100%.
once or twice a week pre-season, we'll do running drills together and whatnot. That makes a huge difference. And it's not just him. There's others on the list who need to get fitter. We know that we talk about Zach Taylor. I said I'd love for him to, partner up with Hugh Bond, who lives with in Adelaide, live with him in Ballarat over the next month, and just go nuts and get his fitness up. Like, they can't hurt. There's a reason why Horn Francis went overseas with Travis Boak to America, because these guys know what they're doing. They're someone to learn off. Shouldn't be ashamed of it.
No, well, it's part of being a professional athlete, and hopefully the lines of communication are there between the senior players and the younger players. You'd like to think so. But there's plenty of development coaches in the system there, and plenty of other people hanging around the club who I'm sure would be willing to give him a hand, and I'm sure Scotty's probably on the peripheral as well, give him a few tips and a kick up the arse as well. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he strips fitter this time in and makes a few post winners. All right, mate. So yeah, we'll do a bit of a more concise draft preview on the weekend, because the draft I think is on the Monday or Tuesday night, I think, from memory. Let me have a look at my calendar here.
Last year was Wednesday, I think. I don't know if it's the
middle
same this year.
So we'll do it the weekend before anyway. We'll get serious. We'll have a look at our squad, see what might suit us, because we haven't talked about any Victorian lads there. There might be one or two Victoria lads that they want to take a punt on as well, but we won't dwell on that tonight. We'll wait until the weekend before the draft for that. The only last thing I just want to touch on briefly, I meant to talk about it before we went to the draft. Couple of players that I was a bit surprised that we didn't go after in the trade period, and a couple that we supposedly did go after and nothing came of it. Tom Power from North Melbourne I thought we might have a look at, but didn't get mentioned at all in dispatches.
No, I think there was only one player in contract that we actually got linked to, who was Sanders. Otherwise, as I said, we seem to go after these out of contract ones. So I guess we just didn't either weren't interested, or North didn't even let us think about it. But yeah, he's one that's where it's like it's hard to see him being a full, first rate midfielder there. In that team going forward, because they've drafted almost exclusively midfielders with their early picks. So a guy like Powell, you just wonder if he's going to be able to make it as a midfielder going forward at that club and be better served going somewhere else. He might be out of contract next year. Someone might have to check that either next year or the one after that. I agree. He's someone that I'm not against us looking at, but when they're contracted fan, we know that you got to pay a lot more than you should. So I guess that's probably a big reason why.
Yep. I guess there's a school of thought amongst some people, that we should have been in the conversation for the bigger name players. Obviously, we missed out on, well, quote unquote, missed out on Petrarca. We didn't follow up on Oliver. We didn't seem to be in the conversation for Sam Flanders. We didn't seem to have any conversations with Zach Merritt. Does it come a point as a club where the situation with regards to our midfield becomes so urgent that they throw caution to the wind and just start throwing we threw 1.5 at Naz. Why wouldn't we go after one of these bigger name players? And I'm not necessarily saying Petrarca or Oliver, because they came with issues. The two that I'm really thinking about are Merritt and Flanders, who I'm surprised we didn't throw our hats into the ring.
I think the simple matter of the fact, Jane, is it's very hard to get non-South Australians to South Australia unless they're on the fringe of their clubs. If they're a gun and they know they can get, their first choice player at either their current club or other clubs they would want to go to, they know they don't have to move interstate. Now, I know Petrarca went to Gold Coast, so don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're completely out of the race with these sort of players, but generally these players want to stay in there or go back home to Victoria or wherever they're originally from. Errol Gordon's a great example. We chucked a lot of money at Errol Gordon, and he decided to stay in Sydney. That's fair enough. That's where he's from, and it's hard to get players out of clubs in general. They form relationships there, and generally players want to stay where they are. It's a lot of hassle to move, particularly interstate.
But that's why I say Merritt and Flanders, because neither of those two boys wanted to stay at their club. And yes, they're both Victorian lads, and Sam wanted to get back to Victoria, and Zach probably didn't want to leave Victoria. I would have quite happily made Zach Merritt the highest paid player in the competition to get him over. Because it's
his age, though.
Honestly, because the offset to us not being an attractive proposition for a gun player in the AFL is to pay ridiculous overs. And I think as a club, I've said this before, people would have heard me say this before on this podcast, that the only way we attract a big name non-South Australian midfielder to our state, to our club, is by paying ridiculous overs, giving them an offer they can't refuse. It's the only way we do it.
I wouldn't have done it for Merritt. There's some players I would have done it for. I think just his age profile, I just don't think the payoff would ever be worth it unless you want to flag him.
Well, we're not far out of a window, mate.
No, but geez, it takes a lot to win a flag, and that's a lot. That's
adding Merritt to our midfield.
Money. Oh no, don't get me wrong. He's a great player. I'm sure we would have asked the question, just properly got told, no, he's not moving. He doesn't want to go to Adelaide. Did you listen to that Just Reed interview, Fiend? There's one was, it was with Rooch and Kimbo, and he said it was interesting. Yeah, no, it was interesting. He basically intimated that Petrarca was actually relatively keen to come to Adelaide, but Melbourne didn't want to deal with us, so he moved on to Gold Coast, and he was really happy to go to Gold Coast as well. And obviously they had the picks, which is, I guess, a promising step for us at least, that we're definitely in contention. But Clayton Oliver, apparently we were interested, and he was not interested in coming here. So I think we if you, based on what Reed said, it sounded like we actually were keen on Clary, and we basically got told nah. So, I think they're actually...
That would have been the Darren Burgess effect, maybe.
I'm sure that would have had an impact, yeah. I think, we love Adelaide, the city, and the club and stuff, but, there's particularly the Victorians, there's a preconceived notion, and we know what it's like. They're basically told from early age that Adelaide's a bad place to be and bad place to live, and that sort of sticks around, as much as things are changing, I think, slowly but surely. It's hard to get players to want to come here if they're not. I don't
think we have as many machetes over here.
We don't.
There's more machetes in Victoria.
But Melbourneites will still tell you that bloody Melbourne's the best place in the world, even though I don't know that's the case anymore.
Look, but irrespective, it's the biggest football market, and you can understand players wanting to be there. But what I'm saying is that to offset that, you have to be prepared to pay overs. And I would have paid one of those two lads a shit ton more than what their market is worth to get them over. Because
but we could have tried that, but we don't know exactly behind the scenes. We might have offered Merritt a lot, and it just we got told no, don't bother. And we probably it wouldn't just be us, Fiend, it'd be WA and clubs and whatnot.
You don't reckon it would get out if we offered him bloody 1.8 or something or other?
I don't think we even got to the stage of being able to name terms. It sounded like we actually did ask. According to Toomey, we did ask and promptly got told, no, he's not moved to Adelaide. So I'm not even sure we got to say how much money he'd get. But I see your point, Finn. I do see your point, but I think money isn't everything. I think there's more that goes into it, and you can flash as much cash around. And look at North Melbourne and St Kilda up until this year. They've been flashing cash every year, saying we'll give you heaps of money and please come to us, and then they still couldn't get people to come to us until now. St Kilda finally got a couple of players.
They suck. We went top in the minor round. Right, from a footballing perspective, we're not an unattractive proposition, right? And from my point of view, this is where the club falls a little bit short, because if you want to get a bloke like Zach Merritt over, you don't start that conversation in July. You start that conversation July 2 years ago. You have got to work on these blokes for a long time to get them to come over. It's not a short-term proposition. It's not like that we're a Victorian club that can just knock on and play a manager's door 2 weeks out from trade period and go, hey, what do you reckon? Right? Well, these are things that need to be worked on over a long period of time. And I don't think we have, we're on the front foot enough, pardon me, with some of these players that we should be earmarking. Because the moment you get a little bit of a hint of some sort of interest or some sort of unrest, you should be taking them out to tea and all the rest of the bullshit. So I don't think we work hard enough in that space because we're too busy whinging and whining about the inequities of it, which we've done tonight. But we're allowed to. But they're in the business of running a football club, so they don't have time to whinge and whine. That's our job. Their job is to operate within the parameters of the system that's put in front of them.
In fairness to Justin Reid, I would say that 4 of the last 5 years, we've gotten genuine, best 22 players into the team. And in some cases, our actual best players. So, we've absolutely improved in that area. I agree that we're still not quite to the level we should be. But if you look at the movement across the competition this year, for a variety of reasons, none of the clubs didn't really improve their list either. And the great thing is we didn't lose anyone, which is important too. But you look at Geelong only got Warple, and they're one of the big boys of trade period. Hawthorn put all their eggs in the Merritt basket and got no one and lost 2 or 3 players. I'm not trying to deflect, but I'm just saying we've had some good trade periods. This wasn't the best, but we've had worse. We've certainly had good trade periods, and you're shooting low hanging fruit when you bring in boys who've baked for the Crows their whole life back to the club from interstate, right? So, to me, it's about time that our club got aggressive. And we had this conversation a few weeks ago about the club needing to be more aggressive. This is just another way that they need to be more aggressive. They need to. I don't care if every other club in the competition hates our guts. We have to shed this pushover image and actually become more aggressive. I know Justin Reid does a very good job. He does a very good job, and I like the way that he negotiated with Archie. I don't think he put a foot wrong. I just think that we don't devote enough time as a club to offsetting or mitigating the inequities that work against us in this competition. We would rather grin and bear it, or be a good citizen, or politely inquire. I don't want to be that club. We can't afford to be that club. We will never ever win anything if we're that club. I guess you could argue the Archie.
Get a handout.
You could argue the Archie standoff was a good step in that direction then.
Well, it was,
not
assuming
giving
that
up
it comes
what
off.
Brisbane asked. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, actually, we talked about him earlier, but like the fact I don't know how much thought went into it or planning, but the fact we asked about a contracted player in Riley Sanders, who's only a second-year player from the
I
Bulldogs,
think that came up because they inquired about Mark Keane.
do you think that was the link there?
I think that was the catalyst, yes.
So it wasn't just Sanders. It was in case they wanted to trade Keane.
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are, it's both of the, involved the Bulldogs, so you're probably right. But at least I think that's an issue. That's out of character for us. Unless, of course, as you said, it was just purely, well, if you're going to ask for Keane, we want Sanders. But
well, why not? We're giving them something that they needed, so we asked for something we needed back.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about planning and stuff, like at least maybe that puts a thought in Riley's head. Of course, the only issue with Riley is that he's almost guaranteed, to be in the crosshairs of Tasmania. So unless he signs a super long contract at a club, whereas the Bulldogs are another club, he's going to get poached.
Yeah, he wasn't the ideal. He wasn't the ideal candidate.
I didn't mind the idea though, Fan. That I don't mind delving in those areas, because how is he going to get a primetime midfield gig in the next year or two at that club?
100%. There are only you can only do what you can do. You can only do what you can do. But I've never heard Sam Flanders' name associated with our club, and I know he wanted to get back to Victoria, but we should have been in that conversation a long way out. My opinion. Zach Merritt, we should have been in that conversation a long way out. Look, and I don't want to dwell on it. There are details, and I'm just talking in general. My general thought is that we need to be arseholes in this competition, because this competition gives us nothing. It gives us nothing. The only thing this competition grudgingly gives us is an extra home game because of gather round.
Yeah.
That's all we get. We don't get anything else. So we have to be arseholes. Well,
we interesting to see what happens with Bailey next year. Like, who knows? He might even sign a contract in the off season. We don't even worry about it. But he's the next one, isn't he? It's going to be a bloody fight between us and Port and other clubs. And I'm not going to get my hopes up for him. To be honest, with free agency, it's like he can choose whoever he wants. So that could be money. That could be who he wants to play for in terms of success. We don't know what the situation will look like this in 6 months' time, and if maybe Port look like maybe they're travelling better than us. Who knows? But it's hard to get our hopes up too much.
Come on.
New coach effect thing. You don't know.
Come on. He coached last year. If Zach Bailey doesn't stay at Brisbane, there's no excuse for him not to be at Adelaide. If he leaves Brisbane and doesn't come to Adelaide, then we've seriously messed that one up. I
think that's definitely an argument. I can pretty much side by that. As much as I think it's harder than that makes it sound. If you do simplify things a bit, and strip it back, it really it's up to us, isn't it? If he doesn't want to stay at Brisbane, I mean, it's up to us to get it done.
Yeah, and it should already be done. the groundwork should already be done. It should just be a matter of touching base every month or two during the course of next year to say everything's still okay. Is there anything else we can do? How's Zach tracking? We've got this ready. We're doing that. Blah 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 blah. So that by the time it gets to free agency, it's sign on the dotted line. Yeah.
Let's hope if he does want to come to us, mate, let's hope Brisbane don't match, because I don't know if Zach Bailey would get through a pre-season draft to us, mate. I think someone.
Well, he's a free agent, so it's not going to happen. So
no, but he's restricted. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. All right, mate. We went over our allotted time by a fair margin, but we covered a fair bit. Any last thoughts? What'd you rate?
You said an hour. I said 1.5. Ended up being 2, but that's still shorter than last time, isn't it? So that's all right.
What'd you give our rating?
Oh, in terms of the trade period,
Mm.
I mean, we're copping D's and C's from everyone. I think C's about right. I think the Petrarca one was a missed opportunity just for a variety of reasons. As much as I didn't want to give up the whole kit and caboodle for him, and certainly we didn't have anything to give up close to what Gold Coast did. But if he really wanted to come here and Melbourne were happy enough to let him go, we would have been able to struck a deal of some description. So I think that was a
How
miss. It would
though?
have done a lot for the.
I don't think.
I
I don't
don't
think we
know.
could.
I don't know.
I don't think we could have competed.
It depends how much Melbourne want to get rid of him, as opposed
Yeah,
to
no.
you know.
But Gold Coast. This is where the inequity sits, because Gold Coast had those picks to give away that treated like confetti, whereas if we had 7 and 8, there's no way in a pink fit we give that up for Petrarca. No way in a pink fit.
No, but I'm just saying if Petrarca said, you know what, I don't want to go to Gold Coast, I want to go to Adelaide. It's up to Melbourne to say, okay, we'll allow that, or no, that's not happening because Adelaide don't have the picks. But if Adelaide, I think in that scenario we probably could have got it done, but it didn't happen because he was happy to go to Gold Coast. So, but that would have done a bit for the image of the club, in terms of attracting people in the future as well to get a big name like that.
I'm not that disappointed.
I'm not shattered. I think it was an opportunity miss, but nothing crazy. I think the most important thing is we didn't lose any players, and we haven't really lost a big name for Yonks now. Like last year, we lost Elliot Himmelberg. The year before, we lost Tom Dudo, who's obviously has struggled since, and before that, it was like guys like Jake Kelly. So we haven't really lost a big name for a while. Hopefully, that continues. I probably jinxed it now.
I would probably say that's because we haven't really had a big name.
But no, I reckon there's enough there with players that if you were rewound 10 years, Rochelle, Curtin, these guys would be talked about, would be much more worried about these guys leaving than the scenario we have these days. But they're obviously a much tighter group. They want to stay here. And that's great. Like Hawthorn even lost 3 players, and I know they're not champions by any means, but Warp was a little bit of a loss, and they stuffed up completely because they put all the eggs in the merit basket. Imagine if they just went for Petrarca thing instead of merit, they probably would have got it done. So, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think there was any massive winners in the trade period. I think everyone had to lose something to get something. I think Brisbane probably did the best because they got free agents, but even then they got nothing for Archie. So, I think we're probably about a C plus, which is fine. But it feels like we missed an opportunity to improve ourselves in the areas we need to, because I think it's pretty clear where we are falling short.
So that answer took 4 minutes, and that's the reason why we've gone 2 hours tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
It's detail, thing. People like the detail.
Because it was like a 2-word answer. Oh, I reckon.
I know. I could have just said C plus and then just leave it. That's just not how I roll, unfortunately. As you probably can tell.
All good, mate. No, it's all good. I'd probably give us a C. I'd even go as high as a B minus. I'd like the way that we conducted ourselves with the Archie situation. I think we're on a hiding to nothing with Petrarca, and as I said, I personally wasn't that disappointed. That we didn't do something crazy with that. Hang on, you've had your say. God damn, man.
There was a little gap there. I thought I was allowed in.
Jesus. So
I'm on a delay, mate. You gotta.
I'll put
There's
you
a
on
little delay there,
mute. I'm going to put you on mute. Right, you're on mute. So, I probably lean to actually a low B, because I think we conducted ourselves well. We didn't have a huge hand to play with in the trade period. A few things sort of got our hopes up over certain matters, but at the end of the day, it was going to be too difficult. So, as I say, mate, we didn't lose any, and I was a bit surprised we didn't lose Geordie Butts, but he turned into a required player, which was good. And so we go all in for the draft. You can talk.
Yeah, I mean, am I back on? Am I? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought Lockie Scholl or Billy Dowling might ask for a trade, even though they're contracted. I mean, it does feel like maybe we overrate our own players because no one else is singly interested in them. But at the same time, I
no
see some of
doubt
the players
about that.
getting, but I see some of the players getting thrown around in trade period that do get to new clubs, and I'm like, I think our boys are better than some of these. So I don't know. Maybe we're out of sight, out of mind a bit. Maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah,
But
stinky Adelaide smell of them.
yeah, they
Adelaide
don't want to go to
jams.
SNFL games, see our players play, so that's all right. I mean, no one went for Oscar Ryan or Charlie Edwards. Like he could have been one. I think we got lucky there a bit that no one even seems to apparently ask. If maybe they did ask, and then we didn't want to trade, and the players said no. Who knows? But
Do you think
yeah.
there's just to round this off? Do you think there's a pact between Adelaide and Port Adelaide not to poach each other's players? Because I reckon there's about 4 blokes on our list that aren't getting a run that would slot very nicely into the Port Adelaide Power side, and it just shocks me that hasn't happened.
I don't think it's a pact. I think it's almost we ignore the other teams to the point where we don't even rate their players. I'm not even sure they know about our reserves players.
I don't believe that for a second.
Really?
Don't believe that for a second.
Maybe they don't bother because they know nothing will ever get done because we hate each other so much. But I think we had Billy Frampton is the only one of recent note. We actually had that. We're going to do a pick swap if that counts for Archie. But going back, Matty Bode.
Billy, Matty, they've all come our way. Billy, Matty, and who was the other lad?
Brad Symes. Brad
Symes, yeah.
Has anyone gone from us to them?
Chalmers didn't go to them. Did Chalmers go to them?
Someone in the chat could probably help out here, but I can't.
Vardy?
Certainly in recent.
Rory Atkins, Hodges, David
It took
Brown.
a long way around. Rory Atkins took a very long way. Took the scenic route.
Biglands didn't go to Port.
He didn't go to Port.
Chalmers. I thought Chalmers, yeah. So no, I just thought that a bloke like Charlie Edwards coming off halfback or into their midfield might have been something. Oh, Rhett Biglands came to us from Port.
Yeah, we meant going from us to Port.
Did Biglands?
I thought Biglands was Wood. I thought he was Woodville West Torrens.
That's what I thought. Anyway, we've gone 95 hours already, so that's it. We're done. Thanks to everyone that's joined us on the chat tonight. It's been lively and much appreciated. We will be back. I don't know what the date is, but the weekend before the draft, probably about the 19th or something of 18th or something of November to have a look at our squad, preview the draft, and see what's happened in the interim, whether there's been any sort of pre-draft trading or anything like that. I dare say not much, because I don't think there's a lot of interest in this draft, to be honest, from clubs, which is why there wasn't a lot of messing around with players, I don't reckon.
Yeah, they talk about how like this period now between now and the draft you can freely trade picks, but it really doesn't happen too often. I think we did it once with Gold Coast, maybe or something last year. I can't remember, but apart from that, yeah, most of it's done on the night. The good thing is, as we get closer, we'll hear about which players are linked to us a bit more and who we might have some interest in. Yeah, particularly those last couple of weeks before the draft night. So we'll have a bit more to discuss and know which players we should be talking about.
Very good. Until then, thank you, mate, for coming on tonight. The other two should be back by the time we do the next one, so we'll make them do all the work. We'll just sit back and have a few beers, I reckon.
Thanks for another concise podcast tonight, mate. I think we've almost got to as long as last week. So but it's been fun. It's been fun. You know, like I enjoy talking about this stuff this time of year. So appreciate you having me on to discuss. And thanks to everyone for listening into.
All good, mate. All right, thanks everyone. We will see you next week. Until then, take it easy. Not next week, next time. Until then, take it easy, and we'll see you later on.
See you guys.